It's interesting. We're in obviously an overreaction business or a reaction business in the NFL more than any other sport. And it seems that the reaction in December is the one that's most serious because it's the one that could be the most indicative of a team's chances. That said, Nick Foles kind of blew that one up last year, and here he comes again on Sunday night, Peter. And that was your lead item of your column. What did you make of the Nick Foles performance and the viability for the Eagles right now?
Well, I mean, it's probably too late for the Eagles, but they've got a chance. Obviously, they need to count on teams above them losing. So virtually impossible that they'll win the division with Dallas having Tampa and the Giants remaining and needing to lose both. But I think overall, Rich, Nick Foles is just one of those guys that's very hard in a in a scouting sense or in an analytic sense to basically say, yeah, we don't love this guy. He's okay, but you just want him on your team. He's just one of those guys. It reminds me when I covered the Giants in the 80s, they had a defensive end named George Martin. And Bill Parcells used to say the ball just finds him. And he would make some incredible defensive plays, even though he might only play 20 snaps a game. And he'd make 2 or 3 plays every game. He was always around the ball. He was so instinctive. And I almost feel like that with Foles, that, put him in the game. He might not play great, but usually when you put him in the game, your team's going to do pretty well. That's what you've seen over the last, say, 53 weeks on the calendar with Nick Foles. And I don't doubt at all he's going to play well against Houston this week, and they've got a good chance to win that game.
And then they just need Minnesota to lose once. That's basically what they need to have happen here. And
right.
Minnesota's at Detroit and then home for Chicago, which has an opportunity potentially to get the 2 seed.
It'll all be up to what Chicago has to play for, I think. Not that Chicago is going to lay down, because I don't think they would, but how much will they have to play for in that game? And if it's only the difference between possibly the 3rd and 4th seed, you wonder whether in that particular case, let's say Eddie Jackson is banged up and they want to make sure he's fully healthy for the playoffs. That's the kind of game where you can, conserve some of the guys who you need to get healthy. So it's easy to sit here and say, well, Minnesota's going to lose one of those games, but I don't know that they are. Let's see.
Well,
who has to play for what then?
Well, it could be one of those things, Peter, where they put Minnesota versus Chicago in a late window in Week 17, the same time that the Rams play the 49ers, to make sure that it's entirely possible for the Bears to get that 2 seed, and then suddenly they're out there, and that might be the way for Philadelphia to get into this dance. And so let me take this one by one here. Nick Foles performs as well as he did on Sunday night. Let's say he continues to do that. What does that put in the mind's eye of Philadelphia in this offseason between Foles and Wentz? Is there really something there potentially?
I think the only way that really matters, Rich, is if the doctors of the Philadelphia Eagles say to Jeff Lurie, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, if they say to him, hey, listen, we got some real questions long-term about Carson Wentz's back, or he's got some chronic knee condition. And I don't think either of those are the case, but I'm saying that the only way that I would change my plan if I were the Philadelphia Eagles is if my doctors told me we're not sure that Carson Wentz can stay healthy, or that Carson Wentz might have a chronic back issue or something like that. Otherwise, Rich, you can't pay 2 quarterbacks. And at the end of this year, somebody is probably going to pay. I don't know who it's going to be, but let's say Tampa, gets rid of Jameis Winston, or Jacksonville obviously is going to be looking for a quarterback. Miami might be looking for a quarterback. And what about the Giants? I mean, so you look at all these things, and there are other teams too. You look at that, and I can't imagine that the Eagles would pay Nick Foles enough for him to turn down the opportunity one more time in his life, at least, to have a team and to be the starting quarterback.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.